Let me be brief in my words today and not as usual and long I am otherwise, including my judgments. It is said that human beings are said to be composed of 5 elements of nature, which teach lessons and inspire strength in the formulation of their true character. For example, earth teaches us patience and love. Air teaches us mobility and liberty. Fire teaches us warmth, courage. Sky teaches us equality, broad-mindedness. Water teaches us purity, cleanliness. The idea behind this is that we are all a part of nature. Man is not apart from nature. As a student of history, I may say that at the dawn of man and animal on this planet, both were in the wild. With passage of time, animals were tamed by man, while he tamed himself to adjust to animals. Because animals which were domesticated were required for his daily activities. Domestication of animals for various purposes brought about harmony between man and animal. In fact, I may recollect an incident which I read in the newspaper a few years ago in Mangalore, where a leopard and a dog strayed into a toilet in a farmhouse near Mangalore. The owner was not aware of this, and as usual in the night, he locked the toilet and went to sleep. In the morning, when the toilet door was opened, to his surprise, the leopard and the dog both came out. What is the meaning of this? This incident shows that animals also act in accordance with context. They are situation aware and are emotional beings in many ways. The leopard did not eat up the dog, but left the dog alone because it knew that both were ultimately captive in the night. But today there is a human-animal conflict. What are the reasons for the same and what are the solutions? We need to introspect on these 2 angles of the problem urgently to preserve the anthropocene ecosystem, for humans cannot survive if the harmony is destroyed. Just imagine if we destroy the bees in this world, what would be the effect on the flora of the ecosystem? We must remember that India has held on to its wildlife despite large-scale development, change in land use, and economic growth because of our cultural tolerance for animals. India has maintained the very precarious balance between people and animals because of this inherent culture and belief that you have to share space with animals. However, recent trends appears that the trajectory is towards human-centric approach, and there is a disregard of the fundamental duty enshrined under Article 51AG of the Constitution with regard to compassion for living creatures. I wish to register only 2 short points here. The first is the increasing materialistic and consumption-based lifestyle that puts excess burden on the natural resources. India has the problem of growing population, except in the southern states. And the only way to cater to the demands to this explosion is to expand living spaces and extract more resources, which inevitably means we invade the spaces which wildlife used and consequently the conflict. It is not that the animals are invading human spaces, it is the reverse. According to one global footprint network, the Earth Overshoot Day, which is July 24th, is the date when humanity's consumption of natural resources for the year exceeds what the Earth can regenerate within the same year. This means that our consumption of resources is significantly faster than what the earth can replenish, making our consumption not sustainable. In my view, one of the reasons to have a sustainable consumption is to reduce the population of this country. The second reason is that we perhaps are looking at this issue of animal-human conflict only through a narrow prism of wildlife invading human spaces. Let us look at it in a larger lens and focus as to why animals are entering human spaces. Why is human-wildlife coexistence turning into a conflict? Whether lack of livelihood of the people contributes to this conflict, or whether measures taken by people against wildlife are practical or not. Here again, I wish to record two short solutions. The first is that we must have an ecocentric approach to forming a solution rather than just limiting ourselves to an anthropocentric approach. I believe that ecocentric approach, which considers human to be a part of the grand scheme of nature, rather than humans being the center of it, is a constitutional expectation based on a constructive reading of Articles 2148A and 51AG. In T.N. Godavarman, the Supreme Court opined that ecocentrism is nature-centered, where humans are part of nature and that non-humans have intrinsic value too. In other words, human interests cannot take automatic precedence, and humans have obligations to non-humans independently of human interest. The principles that we have, such as sustainable development, polluter pays, principle of intergenerational equity, have their roots in this anthropogenic principles. The second point which I wish to register is that while we all look into this problem, we should not also violate fundamental rights enshrined in the Constitution. I will say how that is. I was reading an article recently with regard to a title, The Gendered Forest, Digital Surveillance Technologies for Conservation and Gender-Environment Relationships, where an empirical ethnographic fieldwork was undertaken to see the implications of surveillance technologies used in conservation practice in Corbett Tiger Reserve. The findings of that paper are that women who used to find refuge in the forests and used those spaces for various social associations, including personal and household discussions, away from patriarchal expectations of the family, found that the deployment of technologies such as camera traps used to monitor wildlife had resulted in their transformation in behavior as women, their work patterns, and their daily conduct changed due to digital technologies in the forest space. The presence of camera traps was not just censoring conversations among women, but also stopping them from loud singing of songs and naulis. There was an invasion of their privacy. Therefore, while I am not advocating that camera traps should not be used, I also suggest that such deployment must be done taking into confidence the local people and in a way that ensures that the privacy and well-being of women are not affected. With these few thoughts, I take this opportunity to thank NALSA and KELSA for inviting me to Kerala to share a few of my thoughts. I'm happy to be in Kerala just before the Onam, and therefore I say, Ellavarkum Ende Onasam Segal. Thank you and Namaskar.